So the first person I'm going to introduce is Kathy Hoffman, who is presently the Superintendent of Public Instruction for Arizona. She's running for re-election. So Kathy, would you like to go ahead and tell us about yourself and what you intend to do?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to join you this afternoon. With your support, I was very grateful to and so excited to be elected to this role of Superintendent of Public Instruction back in 2018. At that time, it was the first time in over 20 years that an educator has held this position, as well as the first time in over 20 years that a Democrat has held this position. Prior to being elected Superintendent of Public Instruction, I spent my career working in our Arizona public schools, first as a preschool teacher and then as a speech language pathologist. I worked in both the Vail School District and Peoria Unified School District, working in special education. I knew when I was elected that I wanted to reimagine what the role of superintendent meant here in Arizona. I wanted to show what it meant to have an educator leading our public education system. And to me, one of the most critical pieces of that is being the chief advocate, fighting on behalf of all of our students across the state and making sure that we have a strong educator workforce supporting our students. I knew that I wanted to elevate and amplify all the amazing work happening in our public schools, because I strongly believed that in order for people to see the importance of investing in our public school system, that we needed to show all the amazing work happening in our schools. So in my first year in office, I traveled the state like crazy. I visited schools in all 15 counties, including in 7 of our tribal nations. I visited well over 100 schools, and this was such a great opportunity for me to have candid conversations with our teachers, with principals, school leaders, as well as our students. I would say most importantly, our students, as well as community members, families. And I learned so much by visiting our communities, our schools across the state in person, because it gave me a chance to ask them, what is going well? What are your biggest challenges? And how can the Department of Education support you? One of my most memorable trips was I went all the way up north to Navajo Nation. I visited a couple of districts there. And at one of the schools, the high school in Window Rock, I had the opportunity to visit their welding classroom. Now, when I was in high school, I never had an opportunity to take a welding class. So for me, it was just amazing to see how students in Arizona have those types of career and technical opportunities to work on right there in their school. But one thing that stood out to me was the welding teacher approached me and shared that if he wanted to work in industry as a welder, that he could easily make 6 figures. But every year he goes back to teach his students in Window Rock so that they would have those types of opportunities. Our teachers in Arizona are so dedicated and constantly showing me how they're going above and beyond to serve our students. One of my other memorable trips was going all the way down south to the border. I visited a K-8 school in Nogales. This was a bilingual Spanish-English immersion program. And I'll never forget, an 8th grader approached me and said, Superintendent Hoffman, I want you to know we are not just the leaders of tomorrow. We're the leaders of today. And that is so true when I meet with our students and hear about their advocacy work. And if you want to know what our schools need, look no further than asking an Arizona student, and they will tell you exactly what our schools need. Now, of course, over the past couple years, it's been one of the most challenging times for public education, of course, in Arizona, as well as across the world, as our schools have grappled with the challenges of the ups and downs of the pandemic. And it's been critically important to me to make sure that through these crises, that the Department of Education was serving our schools and disseminating accurate, evidence-based information to help guide our schools through these very difficult years. One of our privileges is also in helping to allocate the federal funds to support our schools. And as you probably heard through the news, there have been a couple different packages of federal COVID relief funds that we have received. You may remember the first one was the CARES Act, and then more recently, under the Biden administration, the American Rescue Plan funds. Very thankful for these federal COVID relief funds that for Arizona K-12 public education alone, the total of those packages has been just over $4 billion for Arizona K-12 education alone through those three packages. And there has been a portion of those funds that we have the discretionary authority to spend to leverage. And so for the set aside funds, we've been working strategically to have statewide initiatives and to really leverage these funds in a way that's serving a broader set of our schools across the state. And so I just want to share a couple highlights out of how we've been utilizing these funds at the state level. Now, as I mentioned, our students will tell you very clearly what is most needed in their schools. And time again, they have shared with me that mental health and supporting our students' mental health in our schools must be a top priority. And so one of our biggest investments to date has been in allocating $21 million to expand and increase the number of school counselors and social workers across the state. We were able to actually add state funding back in 2019, and then with the federal funds, we have effectively been able to reduce the student to school counselor ratio by 20%. So I'm just so thankful that we are moving in the right direction to make sure that our students can access these critical mental health supports on their school campus. I should also note that the budget just passed, the legislature just passed their budget just 2 days ago now in the middle of the night, and I was happy to see that they have actually added an additional $50 million for school safety positions as well. Another one of our priority areas has been in supporting educator and teacher recruitment and retention. So very proud that we've been able to add a couple $1 million towards new teacher mentoring, as well as launching the first ever Arizona teacher residency program to have a new pathway for recruiting teachers into our schools that is modeled after the medical residency model. As was mentioned at the beginning, I am in the midst of my re-election campaign, and I am running as a clean elections candidate. So the good news is that I long ago already completed all of my fundraising, and I am officially on the ballot. And so I am one of the few candidates that I'm very thankful that I will not need to ask you for any fundraising to support my re-election campaign, but I'm very passionate about this work and looking forward to having a second term so that we can continue on this path and supporting our students and teachers in any way possible. And then I will just close out by sharing that, as I've always said, I strongly believe that Arizona's future starts in our schools. And to me, that has taken on new meaning and with new urgency, as last November, I gave birth to my daughter, who's our first child, Clara. And so now Clara is actually 7 months old. She'll be turning 1 right the week after the election. And so this work does take on new urgency for me. So while I continue to think it's so important to have educators leading in education, I am also excited that now I have this new perspective as a new mom, and again, new urgency around making sure that our public schools are well supported so that when she's ready to begin preschool and then kindergarten, that I can have confidence in in the school system as well for her. So with that, I will close out my remarks, and I look forward to the Q&A at the end.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions for you. The next person we're going to be speaking will be Kris Mayes, who is running for Attorney General. It would take me a long time to introduce Kris because she's done a lot of things. She was a press secretary for Janet Napolitano in 2002. She is now a law professor. She was a reporter at one point in her life. She grew up in a tree farm in Prescott. And you can fill us in on anything else and tell us about yourself and what your plans are and what you'd like for us to know about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And it's so good to be with you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I've been really looking forward to it. I am Kris Mayes, and I'm so honored to be your Democratic nominee for Attorney General this year. I am the only Democrat running now, and there are 6 Republicans running. I will talk a little bit about them, but not very much toward the end. I do want to say it's been a very busy day. My day started at 7 a.m. this morning when I had a press conference with other attorney generals, Democratic attorney generals in the United States and Democratic AG candidates, discussing the ramifications of the horrible, outrageous decision of the United States Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade and to overturn Casey and to declare that there is no federal constitutional right to abortion, and to throw this issue back to the states. And so attorney generals are going to be on the front lines, and I'm going to talk more about this. The AGs are going to be on the front lines of fighting for reproductive rights for women, and for fighting this but now successful effort to roll back rights that were granted to Americans 50 years ago and that women have been relying on for 50 years. This first time in American history where rights have been taken away from us and in which women have now been made essentially second-class citizens by this decision. So yesterday was a terrible day. Today we woke up with renewed energy and renewed resolve to fight for our rights. And when you elect me Attorney General, I will be on the front lines of that fight and in those efforts. But just by way of background about me, I did get my start with Governor Napolitano. I was her press secretary in 2002. She later appointed me to the Arizona Corporation Commission in 2003, and I served from 2003 to 2010 as one of your statewide elected corporation commissioners. And I think that we proved when I was on the commission that we can still get big things done in this state. We passed, when I was a corporation commissioner, one of the nation's first renewable energy standards, telling our utilities you must produce more renewable energy and clean energy. That standard alone has saved Arizona 23 billion gallons of water, and it created at least 10,000 well-paying jobs in our state. It also catapulted Arizona into the top 5 states for rooftop solar energy. Top 5, made us a leader in this country. We also passed, and I did this with my colleague, Sandra Kennedy, who we absolutely have to get reelected to the Corporation Commission, along with Lauren Kuby. But I worked with Sandra Kennedy to pass the nation's best energy efficiency standard. Yes, we are #1 for something good in the state of Arizona, and it's the amount of energy efficiency that we require our utilities to do. And because of that standard, because we had the courage to stand up to the utilities who did not want to do this, they didn't want to do solar energy and they didn't want to do energy efficiency, we saved Arizona ratepayers $9 billion over the last decade since that standard went into place. That standard also meant that we did not have to build 15 new power plants carbon polluting power plants in the state of Arizona. So I think we proved that when you elect the right people, people like Kathy Hoffman, listen to what she just said. Listen to what all of the things that she has accomplished during her time as a superintendent of public instruction. As a mom, I am so glad that she is in that position. Next, listen to Martin Quezada and everything that he has accomplished at the state legislature. When we elect the right people and we fight for the right people in office, we can still get big things done in this state. You know, when I was on the commission, we also stood up to multi-billion-dollar corporations when it was necessary. And many of you living in Southern Arizona may remember this, but when the Kinder Morgan pipeline burst, spewing gasoline 80 feet into the air onto nearby homes, I flew to Houston, Texas, and I got a meeting with Richard Kinder, one of the richest men in America, multi-billionaire. And I said to him, by the time, this is unacceptable, first of all, you cannot let your pipelines burst in my state. Unacceptable, can't happen again. And by the time I'm done in office, you will have repaired or replaced all 617 miles of your pipeline in Arizona. And by the time I was done in 2011, he had repaired or replaced all 617 miles of his line. So that is the kind of attorney general we need. And I'm running for attorney general because, quite frankly, I am afraid for our democracy. I believe we are living in the most dangerous time for our wonderful democracy in the history of the country, since the founding of the country, quite frankly. We have a state senate and a governor and an attorney general in Mark Brnovich, who I am seeking to replace. He's termed out now, so it's an open seat. But we had a state senate and state elected officials who sat by and did nothing, right? When they were hiring an outfit called the Cyber Ninjas and allowing the ninjas to send our voter data to a cabin in Montana. My goodness, it's like we're living in a John Grisham novel sometimes, right? But we're not, it's real life. And that is why these elections are so important. We have got to fight for our democracy. We have got to treat 2022 like it is the fight for the survival of our democracy, because it is a fight for the survival of our democracy. We also have a situation in which, you know, our democracy very nearly came close to collapse, and Arizona played, as we're seeing in the January 6th committee hearings, a role in that. We sent fake electors. The Republicans sent fake electors as part of what is clearly a scheme, to engage in a coup to overthrow an election and our government. And I will tell you, of course, Brnovich did not investigate that. When I'm elected attorney general, we will investigate it. It's too important. We cannot allow that kind of thing to happen. We cannot countenance it. And of course, there's this effort by the Arizona Republican Party to eliminate vote by mail. Now, thank goodness they failed not only in the Arizona Supreme Court, but also in Mojave County. They tried to take the case to Mojave County, where they thought they would find a conservative friendly judge, and even he threw the case out. But they are trying to eliminate the way that 90% of Arizonans vote. It is unhinged. It is off the rails crazy, and we must fight it at every turn. And I did. I filed an amicus brief as a former Arizona Corporation Commissioner and as your Democratic nominee for Attorney General, fighting that effort to overturn or to overthrow and eliminate vote by mail. Now I want to turn to reproductive rights. We saw what happened yesterday with the United States Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade and Casey versus Pennsylvania, but which, by the way, was written by our very own Sandra Day O'Connor, and send this issue back to the states for the states to decide. And as you know, we have two trigger laws on the books. that make abortion illegal, period, from the start. We also have a bill that was passed and signed by Ducey, a 15-week ban with no exceptions for rape or incest. My friends, no exceptions for rape or incest. It's the most radical, unacceptable provision you can imagine. Can you imagine requiring a woman who has been the victim of rape or incest to carry that baby to term? And that is what the Republicans in the legislature just did. And so I have promised Arizonans, and I promise you today, that when I'm elected Attorney General, we will never prosecute a woman or a doctor or a nurse or a doula or a midwife or a pharmacist or anyone engaged in providing reproductive services, including abortion, in the state of Arizona, full stop, period. Not going to happen when I'm Attorney General. And, you know, we are also going to utilize what's called the Attorney General's supervisory authority over county attorneys. If we have a rogue county attorney that turns around and starts to try to prosecute women, I will immediately send that county attorney a letter advising them that they are violating the Arizona Constitution. Here's the deal. These Republicans seem to have forgotten, and I'm not real surprised about this, these elected Republicans seem to have forgotten that we have a constitution in Arizona that has an express right to privacy in it. And that express right to privacy is Article 2, Section 8. It was written in 1912 during the progressive era of our state, during the progressive era of the United States. And it is a very broad provision. I want to read it to you because I think it's very important. And this is why I'm saying I am on sound legal ground in not prosecuting and in preventing others from prosecuting. I want to read it to you because I think it's very, very important and has apparently gone unnoticed by the Republicans. That provision states that, if I can just find it here, that provision states that no person, I think I can do it by memory, no person shall be interfered in their private affairs or intruded into their homes, or their homes violated or intruded without the authority of law. Think about that. No person should have their private affairs violated or intruded upon. What could be more private than how a woman treats or what a woman does with her body? What could be more private about the decision about when and how to start a family? Kathy talked about her family. I also am a mom. I'd be the first mom attorney general in the history of Arizona. I believe that. Believe it or not, it's taken more than 100 years for that to happen. Kind of crazy. But, you know, these are private decisions that government has no place intruding upon, and certainly prosecutors have no place in this arena. So we are not going to prosecute women. And I released the day before the Roe decision was overturned, came out, or the day before the Dobbs decision came out and Roe was overturned, I released and did a press conference releasing a 12-point plan for how we are going to protect reproductive rights in Arizona when I'm Attorney General. Couple of provisions, I'll tell you. Number one, and again, of course, we can't believe we're saying this, right? We can't believe we have to say this, but we will never extradite a woman from another state back to Arizona for the purpose of a prosecution. A woman who has traveled to, say, California to receive an abortion, we're not going to extradite her back to Arizona for a prosecution. That is the kind of thing that is now being talked about in other states, if you can believe that. And I am also going to issue comprehensive guidance to families about how they can protect their digital privacy, their reproductive digital privacy in this era of increasing decriminalization of abortion, including how to make sure that your cellular tracking devices are off when you visit an IVF clinic or an abortion facility or a hospital or a pharmacy, and many other provisions. So important that we have an attorney general who will stand up for the rule of law, an attorney general who will stand up for individual liberty and against government intrusion on our most private of decisions. Last couple things. Look, I want to be, given my background, I want to be the first attorney general to make fighting climate change, but especially protecting our precious water resources, a top priority. We have a water crisis staring us in the face, and yet this legislature and this governor have done virtually nothing about it for the last decade. Apparently, there was a little bit of movement in the right direction last night during the budget, the finalization, and maybe Martine can talk about that. But we are way, way off where we need to be. We are 32 feet away from Lake Mead reaching dead pool status. And if that sounds scary, it's because it is scary. It means that our lakes are no longer going to be available to us in the way they have been before. We are going to undergo severe curtailments. And if the state of Arizona doesn't get our act together, the federal government is going to do it for us. So we need to engage in massive new conservation efforts to try to save the lakes and save the Colorado River and save our future. All of this growth that we're experiencing, which can be a great thing, isn't going to be possible if the water isn't there for us to access. You know, the other thing that I am outraged about, and I will investigate on day one, is this sweetheart deal done by the state land department and the Ducey administration, in which they gave our water to Saudi Arabian farmers, so basically the nation of Saudi Arabia, for $24 an acre. And it's in a basin that Phoenix is going to need in a matter of years, especially if we see these curtailments. What in the world was Ducey and the state land department doing when they allowed the Saudis to use our water for alfalfa that then got shipped back to Saudi Arabia for their cows? These are the kinds of insane decisions that I will investigate and watch over and work to prevent as your next attorney general. And finally, look, we got to give back to the core mission of the attorney general's office. One of my co-chairs, so I have two former attorney generals who were co-chairs of my campaign, including a number of others. One was Grant Woods. He passed away, as you all know. He passed away in the fall, and he believed we needed, and I agree, to get back. The other is, by the way, Governor Janet Napolitano. She is the chairman of my campaign. But Grant and Janet both believe that we need to get back to the core mission of the Attorney General's office: prosecuting elder abuse. Mark Brnovich has prosecuted virtually no elder abuse in our state. It's an outrage. How is that even possible when we have one of the fastest growing elderly populations in America? We've got to get back to prosecuting consumer fraud. Mark Brnovich looted the consumer fraud revolving fund and put it into his federalism unit, which is a euphemism for his political pet project lawsuits that he was engaging in to try to get himself onto Fox News. First day I'm Attorney General, that federalism unit will be disbanded. We're putting the money back where it belongs, in the consumer fraud revolving fund, which is supposed to be meant to fight the 15,000 cases of consumer fraud complaints that we have coming into our state, many of them from our most elderly and vulnerable Arizonans. So we're going to get this office back to its core mission. We're going to take politics out of the Attorney General's office, And I'm going to be a lawyer for the people of Arizona as your next Attorney General. So I'll end it with there, and looking forward to taking any questions that you have at the end. And finally, let me thank you all for everything that you are doing to help us fight for this critical election in 2022.
All I can say, Kris, is fantastic. Love your passion, and you must have really enjoyed watching those attorney generals testify at the January 6th committee.
Fascinating.
So next, I'm going to introduce Martine Quezada, who is running for state treasurer. You're an attorney, you teach law, I know that. You can tell us about yourself and tell us what you're going to do.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, George, too, and to the Green Valley Democrats, just for having me out here today to talk about my run to be your next state treasurer. My name is Martine Quezada, and right now I have the privilege and the honor of serving the people of Maryvale and Glendale, that's in West Phoenix, as their state senator. I've served in the Senate for the past nearly 8 years now, and I served nearly 3 years in the House of Representatives before that. I also serve the people of Avondale, Glendale, and Phoenix as a member of the Pendergast Elementary School District Governing Board. Professionally, I am licensed in Arizona's state and federal courts as an attorney, and I've also practiced law for the past nearly 13 years. Like I mentioned before, I'm currently a state senator. Just last night, actually, it was very early this morning, I just finished up my 4th and my final term in the Senate. And I cannot return anymore because of term limits. And I want to make it very clear, make no mistake, the Arizona legislature has grown increasingly partisan, polarized, and combative. During all my time in the legislature, I've never backed down to any of those challenges. I've engaged in the most of the controversial of debates. I've tackled the biggest issues at the Capitol, and I've been on the front lines dealing with our biggest issues that a lot of politicians don't want to deal with. I've faced those issues head on, and I've never backed down from those challenges. But while I've never backed down from those challenges, I've actually genuinely missed the focus on professionalism, morality, and solutions-oriented policy proposals. So that's what really appealed the most to me about the office of the state treasurer. I'm running for this office because I know that if we ever expect to advance policies in our state that reflect our values, we need to first have a solid foundation of the effective management and investment of our taxpayer dollars. This office accomplishes that goal. The problem is that the holders of this office up to this point for the last several terms have only used it as a parking place or a stepping stone for a higher office. None of them have really fully embraced this office or taken advantage of the opportunities that this office has to do good proactively, to do good for the people of Arizona. But because this office is so low key, it's not as high profile as Attorney General or as Superintendent or Governor or US Senator. It gives us an opportunity. I really believe we have an opportunity here. We have the opportunity to apply my legal background, my political experience, and my understanding and my strong track record of advocating for our shared values in our state, and really use that to focus on professional, moral, and solutions-oriented management and investment of our taxpayer money. So the problem now is, another problem is we have to tell people what the treasurer's office does, because nobody knows what the treasurer is. Nobody is excited about hearing from a state treasurer candidate. Your kids aren't telling you, Mom, Dad, I want to grow up and be a state treasurer when I grow up, right? So a lot of people just aren't aware of this office. And that's a sad thing, because the reason people don't know about this office is because the people that have been in this office haven't done anything with it. And I would ask each and every one of you, what's the last thing you've heard, good or bad, that your state treasurer has done for the people of Arizona? You probably haven't heard very much at all. And that is a sad thing. So we're having to educate people and tell them what the treasurer's office is, what it does, why it's so important, and why you need to be excited about the opportunity. So the treasurer's office does three basic things. Number one, you're the chief banker of the state of Arizona. As the chief banker of the state, we need to professionalize this office with some isn't using it as a platform to run for governor. Somebody who's going to come in and establish a culture of professionalism with high performance expectations, who's going to hire the right experts to do the work, empower them to do that work, and then hold them accountable for that work. I've got a track record of doing that for my entire career as a lawyer, as a school board member, and as a state senator. I'll do that again as the chief banker, as your state treasurer. The second role that the treasurer has is you're the chief investment officer. So as the chief investment officer, we need somebody who's going to reestablish the safety of our principal as our number one priority. That means not losing any money that you've paid in taxes. We can't lose that money. We need to protect it. We need to safeguard it. We need to not be risky with it and be making risky investments. So at the same time, we need to maintain an appropriate level of liquidity, and we need to maximize the return on our investments as well. But more importantly, we can do this all while at the same time ensuring that our investments better reflect our values. Two of our biggest investments right now in the state of Arizona, what they are right now, but they shouldn't be, is Facebook and Amazon. We shouldn't be contributing to the fossil fuels industry when we could be investing in cleaner energy. We can only do things like that if we have somebody in this office who isn't trying to fool the state with fake high yield numbers and is really just using that office to invest in political favors for people in powerful positions in our state government. That's what I will do. I will invest based on our values with a conscience while protecting our money and getting a good return on that investment. The third role that the treasurer has is you're the chief financial officer for the state of Arizona. So as the chief financial officer, the state treasurer has an opportunity again to maximize transparency in our state in a couple of different ways. One, we can increase the financial literacy efforts to our communities. The people, the small businesses that need them the most, we can provide them with that financial literacy, that education to make them financially literate and help them better manage and make best use of their monies. Right now, financial literacy is literally an afterthought in the treasurer's office. It's only a link on their website. I will make it a priority. Lastly, this office can help people invest as individuals as well. It's not just investment of the state's money. We can help individuals invest again. So again, we can help the people that need it the most as well. Right now, an example, we have 529 education savings plans available, yet the people who need those plans the most have no idea that it even exists. We have families that are struggling to find affordable housing. They're struggling to make their monthly rents or their mortgage payments. They're struggling to fill their tanks with gas. And we need to be able to provide them with the opportunities to better manage their own monies and know about what the state is doing with their monies and what the state is or is not doing to help them out with those problems like rent, like gas prices, like inflation. The treasurer can be that advocate. The treasurer can be your voice to talk about everything that has a financial impact in the state of Arizona, including, just like Kris was saying, water. Water is a hugely important issue. Just last night in the legislature, we passed a bill that made a little bit of progress, but there's so much more that needs to be done. Water is going to be the most critical issue in the state of Arizona for the next couple of decades. It's already one of it probably is the most critical issue in the state of Arizona. Last night, we passed a bill that put a little bit of money into conservation efforts. It restructured what's called the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority to basically to go out and seek water from outside of the state. But it does nothing to stop the pumping of the water in our ground, does nothing to really enact more conservation efforts. And it does nothing really to create better water policies that will prepare us to survive in the future. As the state treasurer, I can be a voice for you on those issues because water is money and water will impact our economy. Water will impact our finances. The treasurer should be an advocate for a more responsible protection and use of our water. And so having me in that role and partnering with our Attorney General to look at how we're giving water away to other nations at low cost, how is that an effective use of our state's money? As the state treasurer, I have a platform. I will be calling that out, calling out that type of giveaways of our water, of our money, and the misappropriations of our dollars as well. There's a whole lot of ARPA funds that our governor has been misusing, and a lot of ARPA funds that our governor hasn't even spent yet. And where is the treasurer speaking out about those issues? I will be doing that as your state treasurer. So in closing, I just want to say that I'm going to bring my skills as a lawyer to ensure that this office understands the ever-changing state and federal regulations on how we invest. My skills to understand how the court system works, to better predict how they'll rule on any issue that involves our office, and I'll understand how to create an office culture of professionalism. I'm also going to bring my understanding of our state politics. I've been in the legislature for 10 years, over 10 years, as a legislator, to ensure that that the treasurer's office understands the politics of this role and how to effectively balance political expectations of the community and the institutional expectations of the state to ensure that we can run our government effectively and efficiently. And lastly, I'm going to bring my experience as just a member of this community and as an activist in this community to ensure that my office, the treasurer's office, understands how to make our investments reflect our values, because these dollars are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These numbers impact every aspect of our lives, from public education to healthcare to infrastructure to water to the environment. And we need somebody in there whose values align with ours, who is making our money work for us on each and every one of those issues. And our money does touch each and every one of those issues. I'm going to do all of that with professionalism, with empathy, and with passion for the people that I serve. We have an opportunity here to reinvent the office of the state treasurer and change it into change it from one that is nothing more than administrative stepping stone into higher office, and turn it into one that actually seeks out ways to better serve the public through improving financial literacy, solving our housing crisis, working on our housing crisis, and making our money work for us to protect our planet. I've got the track record, I've got the qualifications, I've got the campaign infrastructure, and I've got the desire and the passion to win this race. Now all I need is your help. I'm going to put my link in the chat, but thank you all. I look forward to the questions, and please also vote for Kathy Hoffman and for Kris Mayes for Attorney General as well.
Martine, you have one vote for sure. Okay, great job. Here's what we're going to do now. We're going to have a lot of questions for you guys. I'm not sure. I know I see one right now I'm going to ask from Peter Jackson. The question for Kris Mayes: will you be able to do anything about Trump fascist violence and lies? You can't yell fire in a movie theater. You shouldn't be able to spread bold-faced lies to the public.
Yeah, so look, on the fascism side and the violence side, yes. We certainly can, and I certainly would be aggressive on that front. And I would work with local law enforcement agencies to do that. I've been in touch with former county attorneys about some of these issues. And I think the Attorney General's office and my AG's office can work with county attorneys and sheriff's departments throughout the state to provide them resources. One thing that I think is very scary, and I don't want to be too hyperbolic here, but I think it's a huge growing problem, which is the rise of hate crimes and the rise of militias. That are growing increasingly active online. After the Oath Keepers and this January 6th and the insurrection and all of the arrests, some of these violent groups began to splinter. Some went underground, but they are still there. And they are still plotting. And we have got to be extremely vigilant about that, and about preventing the next attacks. And so, that is something that I would do, is to work with county attorneys, work with local law enforcement to try to get a handle on both the rise of hate crimes, which we've seen a spike in hate crimes in Arizona generally, and in the rise of extreme right-wing militia activity here to prevent future violence.
Okay, well, that's for sure is a problem.
Kathy, you shorted yourself some time, so I'm going to ask you two questions real quick because I know you have to leave. So thank you for being here. Number one, the two questions I have is banned books and critical race theories have been hot button issues this fall, causing even almost riots at some of our school board. How do you plan to do something about those two subjects? Plus, how would you plan to create more diversity and inclusiveness in our school systems in Arizona?
Thank you for that question. I think that might have been 10 questions, but no. So first of all, the banning books and critical race theories are just creating divide in our communities. It's creating a distrust. It's really intending to create distrust between our teachers and our families. It's stoking a lot of fear in our communities, which is why we're seeing this horrendousness at our school board meetings of people coming and threatening school board members and school board members fearing for their lives, because across the board, there's been so many issues that have just become these hot button culture war issues that are ultimately a distraction from the issues that really matter. And so in the Department of Education, when I took office, one of the first things I did was I created a new leadership position, the Associate Superintendent of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And we have been continuing to build out that office, especially over the past year. One of the teams that falls under that office is our Office of Indian Education that serves our Native American students and education community specifically. And when I first took office, the Office of Indian Education only had one person serving all of our Native American students and communities in Arizona, which is just an embarrassment to only have one person in the department serving such a high needs community. Since then, we've invested $1 million and expanded that team to now 6 people, and they are doing tremendous work in and part of what, and so this is true for teaching in terms of educating our teachers and training them on how to be culturally relevant and making sure they have the appropriate language, and teaching our students about our history. This is very important issues of our civics, and teaching our kids to be critical thinkers. So from my position, I can't get involved at the school board level, and I can't write the laws or pass the laws at the legislature, but I am a very strong voice for advocating for these issues and making sure that the Department of Education is positioned in a way to support our educators and to fight against these bills that are really creating a lot of a divide. And again, just it's breaking down the relationships between families and schools, whereas I see the priority as building the trust and enhancing the communication and saying that we want parents to be active in their child's education, but to not be attacking our teachers.
How can we get better promotion of community college and trade schools, as well as reinforcing how beneficial these types of jobs are for the workplace environment and economy? Do you have any plans to help promote that kind of education?
Absolutely. So the way this looks in the high schools, and you heard me talking about the welding program. So these types of vocational programs at the high school level, and actually at the middle school level as well, these are called our career and technical education programs. And I have been a strong advocate for expanding career and technical education opportunities for our students. And since taking office, the legislature actually has expanded funding so that now our students, our schools who have ninth graders now also receive funding for if they want to take one of these courses, whereas before, if a ninth grader was interested, the school wouldn't receive funding for those students. But so now that's one of the steps we've been able to fight for, is expanding funding so that more students are at an earlier age are getting engaged in that type of more vocational, more, we call, as I said, career and technical types of education programs. I've seen some amazing programs. I talked about the welding program, but I mean, our students are learning all kinds of technical skills. They're working on airplanes. They are learning coding. They're learning health services. Our students are our high school students can graduate with their certificate to immediately enter the workforce if that's what they desire. And so I'm very supportive of these programs and think that Arizona is actually a strong leader in this area.
Okay. Sanda Clark has a question. And Sanda, could you turn your video so we could see you?
Hi, Kathy. I remember reading recently that you, through the new funding that became available to Arizona, you created a program for like apprentice teachers or teachers' aides. I believe there are 5 recipients of that. All of them were allocated to Maricopa County. And I would like to understand why none came to Pima County. Could you explain that?
And I just need more specifics on what grant you're referring to, because I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Well, I'm referring to the 5 programs that were created for like teachers' aides or to new teachers to get experience, or people who are interested in education. I don't exactly remember the title of the program, but I know that 5 positions were created and all went to Maricopa County, not a single one for Pima County.
I think what you might be referring to, please correct me if I'm wrong, are you referring to the teacher residency program?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm excited to share that this is just the first year of the program. And so in their first year, and this is actually through the Arizona K-12 Center, and in partnership with NAU, the Arizona K-12 Center falls under the umbrella of NAU. And in their first year, just the first cohort, they partnered with 3 districts in Phoenix. They are 3 different elementary school districts in Phoenix, but there are absolutely plans to expand this statewide. So this is just the first year starting in Maricopa County, so that they can make sure that before they scale it up, that they have, good success. And so they have plans to expand this out. I don't know where to yet, but in other parts of the state. And and actually the Department of Education didn't have a role in selecting the initial partner districts, because the Department of Education made the investment in the teacher residency program, and they did assure us that this would be expanded statewide to other parts of the state, not just Maricopa County. So yes, I still have my roots back in the Tucson area, and absolutely, I've been down to Tucson twice in June already. I am there all the time. I greatly appreciate the support of everyone down in Tucson and Pima County. So don't think for a second I've forgotten about you or our teachers or students in Southern Arizona. It continues to be a high priority.
Well, we'd like to put us on the list often. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Have a good one. Thank you for being a part of us. I was going to ask Martin a question, and all 3 of you have answered a lot of the questions I had put together of about 30 or 40. So thank you for giving us all that great information. Martin, the lucrative sports betting laws will bring in millions of dollars to Arizona, but as of right now, or the last reporting I was able to find, we'd only got in $10 million that trickled in this far into the state treasurer. How would you handle this, and what is the process for using some of this money across the state?
Right. So we're talking about this sports betting money.
Yes, specifically.
And we
yes.
just changed that law last year to allow for the sports betting to come in, which was supposed to bring in a large amount of money into our state. When we passed that legislation in the legislature just this past year, it was a deal that was arranged mostly working through the governor's office without the input of the state treasurer then, and the tribal nations and the sports betting teams. So that was a deal that they put together. I did not support that legislation for a couple of different reasons, and we could get into that. But what I do believe we could have cut a better deal. And to kind of bring it back to where I am as a state treasurer, I believe that should have been a role that the treasurer played in that negotiation process to influence both the governor, the legislature, and our tribal nations about what the best deal could be and how that money should be collected and where that money should go. I think the treasurer should have played a much stronger role, and that is using a level of influence that office has that up to this point our treasurers just haven't been using. Like our attorney general exercises influence on legal issues. Our superintendent exercises influence on education issues. Our secretary of state exercises influence on elections issues. The treasurer should be exercising influence on financial issues. And that is a huge financial issue for the state. So what I believe we should be doing, or I should be doing as a state treasurer, if I'm elected in that role, is working really hand in hand with the legislature and with the governor to help them craft a plan that is going to financially benefit us as a state the most, and that is also fair at the same time to our tribal brothers and sisters as well, because we have to treat them fairly as well. And I'm not sure that this bill did that as much as it could have or should have. And so that's just, I think there was a lack of influence that was exercised in how those monies are coming in and where they should be going.
All right. Kris, you're right. You're going to be at the front line of so many issues coming up: voter rights, abortion rights, LBGT rights, and so many of those things. However, your opponents are not talking about those things. They're talking about, on all their advertisement, is border security and building the wall. It has nothing hardly to do with us, except for in Southern Arizona, it is a problem for us. So how would you address those two issues from your opponents?
Yeah, you're right. They are not talking about any of the most pressing issues facing the state of Arizona. They don't talk about anything that I'm talking about. They don't talk about water. They don't talk about voting rights. They certainly are. I don't know what they're going to do about talking about the fact that they just took away fundamental rights from every woman in the state of Arizona. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how they handle that. I think they're sort of like the dog that caught the bus. They don't know what they just did. And I think Arizonans are going to make them understand how they feel about being deprived of fundamental rights, like the right to control our own bodies. With regard to the border and border security, look, I do think we are seeing a surge at the border that we need to address, and I will put the blame for the failure to address the surge at the feet of Doug Ducey and Mark Brnovich and every Republican legislator who have sat on a $5 billion surplus and used none of it to help law enforcement along the border. You've used virtually none of it to help address the fentanyl crisis that we have in terms of smuggling of fentanyl across the border once it gets into the U.S. The feds do not do prosecutions below a certain level of drugs that are coming into the United States, including fentanyl, and then it becomes the state's responsibility or county's responsibility. And oftentimes counties are overwhelmed and can't do those prosecutions. And if you had an attorney general worth his salt, which we don't in Mark Brnovich, you'd have somebody who was going after fentanyl. If you had a governor who was worth his salt, you'd have somebody who would have taken tens of millions of dollars and applied it to going after this fentanyl crisis, which is destroying our families and killing our kids. So, I'm going to take the fight right back to these Republicans and say, hey, who was in charge for the last 8 years? wasn't the Democrats in charge of our state for the last 8 years. It was the Republicans who sat on a mountain of money and did nothing about the pressing crises of our state. And so, yes, there are border issues we have to address. And as Attorney General, I am looking forward to working alongside the border law enforcement and actually helping them in actually coming up with solutions to help them. And working with hopefully a legislature and a governor who gets it and who understands that we actually have to provide resources to law enforcement along the border to deal with these problems.
We've got a $5.3 billion budget surplus in the state of Arizona right now. And again, I think this comes back to the lack of influence that has been exercised by the state treasurer. We should be talking about what are the best financial moves for the state of Arizona. That includes exerting influence on how we use budget surpluses. And we have a budget surplus, $5.3 billion. The treasurer could have been giving an advisory to the legislature about what that money could or should have been used for, and what would have made the most sense financially for the state of Arizona. We put another, I think we increased it up to $1.25 billion is now in the budget surplus or in the rainy day fund. That's way more money than we needed to put in there. So things like that are things that the treasurer should have been vocal about. And I think that lack of a voice really has left a void in our state government, because there is nobody that is really advocating for sound financial policies and sound use of taxpayer money at that state level. And so that's a role that I hope to fill.
I can ask, I've got a question and I wanted to ask Kris real quick is, with all these rights, how would you enforce rights for the LGBTQ in Arizona?
Well, this is a great question. So first of all, the Attorney General's office has an Office of Civil Rights. And it has been, not vastly underutilized in Arizona. We obviously have a rise of hate crimes, many of, increasing hate crimes against members of the LGBTQ community, harassment, an effort to roll back protections for them. Obviously, I'm worried very much about what's going to happen at the federal level now that the Supreme Court has undercut the federal privacy argument. And but that's sort of a slightly separate issue. This matters to me personally. I would be the first openly gay Attorney General in Arizona history. So obviously I care deeply about this too. And this is something this is a responsibility of the Attorney General's office, and in particular of the Office of Civil Rights. And I would put resources toward it. It's not something obviously that Mark Brnovich is putting resources toward, but I would put resources toward protecting all individuals who face harassment and discrimination. You can also talk about individuals with disabilities who face discrimination, who need to be protected out of the Office of Civil Rights. And a lot of that kind of enforcement is not happening either in Arizona right now.
Okay. Comment here, excellent presentation and illuminating. Thank you so much for each participant. And then another comment. It isn't a surplus when you don't pay your bills. Arizona needs to fund education.
Well, I'll let Martine take that first. But yeah, I agree with that.
No, exactly, and that's exactly what the treasurer should be saying publicly, is that we are so underfunded, and when you underfund public education, when we are ranked 48th and 49th and 50th in the nation in teacher pay and in teacher to student ratio, in counselor to student ratio, in all of these factors, that impacts our state financially as well. We lose business, we lose income, we lose revenue from taxpayers. And we should put that in dollars and cents messaging and put that information out there for the people so that they can know and they can hold their legislators and policymakers accountable for it too.
That's good.
That's-
Lois and Mike Norman have a question.
Hi, how
Could
you
you guys,
doing?
you know,
I just want to say it's really nice to see you, Kris. I remember you when you were a new reporter and you were on PBS with Michael Grant and Howard Fisher. It was back in the 80s. I don't know, a long time ago.
I was like,
And
yeah.
you've come a long ways. And congratulations on being here and good luck.
Thank you, Mike and Lois. Thank you so much. Yeah, it has been a long time. It's been a couple decades, and I loved being a reporter. I will tell you this, I honestly think having been a reporter was important to my
Yeah.
being a good corporation commissioner, because as you know, listening to Martine and listening to me, and thinking about what makes for a good elected officials, it's really about asking tough questions, right? And I learned how to do that as a reporter, and asking tough questions of powerful people and people with authority. And I know Martine's going to do that, and that's something that I will continue to do as your Attorney General. So, and I just wanted to say one last thing, if I could, Paul. I love doing these Zooms, but today I listening to Martine, I discovered another area that I think I want to focus on as Attorney General. It's a great idea, which is, what is happening to those ARPA funds, right? How are they being spent? Are they being misused? And that's something that the next Attorney General could take a good, hard look at.
Right.
Because that money was supposed to be, those are your taxpayer dollars, and they're supposed to be spent on Arizonans. So let's take a look at that.
all right. Well, we have to almost sign out. I don't want to sign off, really. This has been so good. Comments. This has been a wonderful discussion. I've learned a lot. Such good candidates for Arizona, and I wish you all well. It has been a pleasure to hear these candidates. I feel so much more informed than before I heard them. Thanks for having this forum. And thank you all. I spent yesterday in tears and rage, but feel much better today, knowing that we have such great Democratic candidates. Could you wrap up for like 30 seconds or less, Kris, about the cyber ninja idiots?
Gosh, I wish I could give you a good answer. Maybe Martine could give you a better answer than me, but I don't know. Look, I think that I think that it's an example of the sickness that has beset some Republican elected officials. Trump may be sort of off the scene, but Trumpism is not gone. And the idea that our Republican legislative leadership allowed this to happen is outrageous. By the way, I would have investigated it if I had been Attorney General. I would have investigated. I don't think it was constitutional what they did. That can never, ever happen again. I got to tell you, I come across so many independent voters and moderate Republican voters, and Martine probably does too, who are just so embarrassed by that. And we can't grow as a state in the way that we need to, and that Arizonans deserve, when our Republican elected officials are doing such not only embarrassing, but dangerous and unconstitutional things. So we have a chance to turn the corner in 2022 and give Arizona the leadership that it deserves.
So anyway, George, did you have a thing you wanted to say?
We'll wrap it up. Yeah, I just wanted to add what Martine was talking about was when we don't pay attention to education, we get states like Texas coming in to try and rob us of our quality of teachers. So yes, thank you both for being here. Great answers, great presentations. We'll say that to Kathy also, even though she's not online. And thank everybody that attended the meeting today. We had almost 30 people here, so thank you. Remember to bring your items by the We Help collection at headquarters for school supplies. And we want to thank you today for being here. And please, next time, invite your friends because we will be at the CD6 Forum at the Good Shepherd Church on July 9th at 3 p.m. Paul, anything else you want to say as we wrap things up?
Just that everybody was superb, and I can't give you a better word than that.
Thank you
Oh,
all.
fantastic.
Everybody have a good day. And
Thank
we'll
you,
see
guys.
you in another month, but we'll see you in 2 weeks live.